Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. There's a brand new Marvel X-Men 97 Season 2 trailer, so we will break it all down. There's a bunch of new footage, Easter eggs, and new characters they're bringing from the comics. So if you're brand new to the channel, I will be doing weekly episode videos like I did for Season 1. Be sure to subscribe to get everything. Between this and Avengers Doomsday, it is going to be a really good year for X-Men fans. It's going to be eating really, really good. Most of the trailer is dedicated to setting up the central mystery of the season and Apocalypse as the main villain across 3 different time periods. So the season is basically hyping up the rise of Apocalypse over thousands of years into the distant future eventually. When he was relatively young in ancient Egypt, going by his issatrbl name, where the X-Men meet him in the past, love the way Beast ended Season 1, even though the way Professor X and the rest of the X-Men ended that moment when they met Apocalypse in the past, they didn't immediately connect the dots, that was the Apocalypse they knew from the future. Oh dear. I think the idea is they're treating that like a mystery, like Professor X gets visions across the trailer where he sees distant apocalypse, but post-apocalyptic events happening in the future, and he says there's something larger at play. I think the idea is that they learn that Apocalypse is the person that they see in the past. Then at some point, after at least the first couple of episodes, Bishop finds them in the past and rescues them because we see him Bishop in the past with those X-Men in ancient Egypt. So this is the beginning of the season, the first couple of episodes. Once they figure out where they are and how they wound up in the past, it seems like they slowly start connecting the dots that Apocalypse is the common denominator across the past, present, and future. And maybe there'll be some moment in the past where they accidentally end up causing that to happen in the future. Maybe something that they do to King in the past helps lead to Apocalypse rising in the future. So they're partially responsible for the really terrible WTF stuff that happens by the distant future where Cyclops and Jean Grey wind up. This is what happens when you mess with the timeline. Starting at the beginning of the footage, the trailer actually starts with a group of younger X-Men in present day. There's Quentin Quire, Kid Omega. I think the girl in the hat with the light-based powers is Lightbird. I think the other guy is Prodigy. I'm not totally sure who this other girl with the long hair is. Maybe it's Monet St. Croix. I'm not sure who this other man is next to her. They run through the woods near the X-Mansion. We see it's in ruins in the front gates here. It seems like it's relatively soon after the end of Season 1. And Forge and Bishop are still picking up the pieces of the X-Men team, trying to assemble a new roster of all the X-Men who are still around that they can find, and trying to figure out where the X-Men wound up across the timeline, because Bishop figures out that they were scattered across the past, present, and future. You also remember some of the X-Men on Forge's board here were listed as being unavailable because they were either off-world, or they were in another dimension, or not sure, big question mark, where is this person? There are a lot of Easter eggs on this board here. Then they reveal that Penance is with them too, looking at the X-Mansion. They talk about the X-Men being gone. Some of them think that they're never coming back. We know that's not true, because we see, within a couple episodes of this, they'll make it back to present day. They're wearing the Frank Quietly costumes. So, eventually, Bishop will bring them back to present day. We get the new intro title. It seems similar to last season with the change that it's yellow text on a blue background, and there's a blue first.
No way through, possession lost.
I think this is just going to be a reference to the X-Men's classic costume color, yellow and blue.
Stop that one in its tracks.
With the Bishop voiceover during the scene of the X-Men being thrown across the timeline in space. They are someone that scattered them across time. While this is going on, we do a montage. So next big Easter egg here, new character, we see King the Conqueror in ancient Egypt in his Roman-type form, which is based on a story. This also confirms the big theory that everybody had. It was a very common theory that it was Kang's time ship in the city that Beast and the X-Men saw when they had Apocalypse in the past. There was this spherical ship, so people were like, hey, probably Kang the Conqueror. Kang being in ancient Egypt when Apocalypse was there is based on original comic book story. This is deep-cut Fantastic Four story. Kang's very first appearance in Marvel Comics was as the Ramata character. He debuted in the comics as Ramata, but it was the same version of Kang. His backstory explained that he was born as Nathaniel Richards, like a regular human, in the vastly distant future of Earth. He was born, then tweaked Dr. Doom's plans for his time platform in the distant future and turned it into a time ship, using that to go back into the past, ancient Egypt, and styled himself Ramata, trying to set himself up as a ruler in the distant past. The Fantastic Four, Reed Richards, learned about him, also traveled to the past, and picked him back to the future, where he came up with his King the Conqueror identity and the armor that you recognize him from Ant-Man the Wasp: Quantumania, that version of Kang. What wound up happening, though, is that when the Fantastic Four picked Kang back to the future, he wound up setting Apocalypse up as his successor in the past. So the way they're playing this in the trailer, though, the minor change here, is it seems like Apocalypse gains control over Kang's Sphinx ship, his advanced technology, and they're just going to say the Kang's Sphinx ship was his ship from X-Men the Animated Series that Beast talked to, the living ship, its advanced technology. The reason why it's so advanced is because it's from the distant future, it just belonged to King the Conqueror, which makes way more sense now. So it's also possible the King the Conqueror was responsible for scattering the X-Men but there might be something else at play too. In the comics, Apocalypse also eventually makes a bargain with the Celestial, so his armor and a lot of his tech are Celestial tech. And notice when King is manipulating a lot of his technology here, the symbols look like Celestial tech from the Eternals movie in the MCU live-action movies. Also similar to King's tech during Ant-Man the Wasp: Quantumania, it would make sense that King in the distant future would also be using Celestial tech in some way. So maybe they'll think it's some sort of Celestial technology in the past too, but I'm not expecting the Celestials to be like a real big part of Season 2. They're mostly just hyping up King the Conqueror in his Ramatut form in the past. You can see the X-Men from the past at the end of Season 1 trying to acclimate and figure out what's going on, why they ended up in the past. World powers up with what seems like Magneto's energy. She seems like she just siphoned some off of him, and they're getting ready to fight some other group of people that maybe try to attack them. Professor X gets a crazy vision of the future. The red sky is probably related to the Rise of Apocalypse storyline. He sees portents, visions, Apocalypse's WTF future that he's trying to bring about. There was some of this going on during Season 1 too, where people get crazy visions. This is probably when Professor X is starting to get the idea that Apocalypse is behind all of this. But at least in the past, they don't know that Nur is Apocalypse right away. You see a shot of Kang's Sphinx ship. It changes into Apocalypse's base in the distant future where Cyclops and Jean Grey were sent, which is why I think they're implying that in the distant past in ancient Egypt, Apocalypse gains control of Kang's Sphinx ship because some of the X-Men do in the past. Or in theory, the X-Men in the past try to stop King the Conqueror, thinking that he's the person behind everything, but in doing so, in kicking Kang out, they let Apocalypse gain this technology and he becomes the Apocalypse over in present day in the distant future. So they inadvertently cause the problem that they're trying to solve. This is why you don't mess with the past. You see a shot of Cyclops and Jean Grey with their son Cable, Nathan, when he was a child. He was raised in the distant future during this time period. This is accurate to the comics. They then fight Apocalypse's forces together as a family. They also would be proud. Those have been continuing conversation, probably with Thor making their plan to rescue the X-Men. When he goes, we have to get the X-Men back to the 90s. It's both the present day of the main time period. It's 1998, as in X-Men 97 Season 2, so like just a year has gone by. But it's also a joke about the original X-Men animated series, where the 1990s animated series in the series plays heavily on 90s nostalgia. Like, hey, remember the 90s? We need to go back to the 90s. A lot of the promos for Season 1 were also hyping up CRT TV VHS tape. We have the Laserdisc joke at the end of the trailer, the DVD joke. When they say it's coming out this summer, I believe it's going to be after Spider-Man Brand New Day, but maybe they'll confirm that soon. It could be before that. We'll see. They've also already confirmed that they're doing Season 3, and they're going to try to get each of the seasons out once per year at this point. So hopefully there won't be a big break between Season 2 and Season 3.
I figured it out.
There were a lot of questions about where she and Wolverine wound up at the end of Season 1 too, because everybody was scattered across the timeline, and they were not in those post-credit scenes. So we don't know much about which time period they wound up in.
I'm sure he'll look to continue that in the second half.
But it seems like in the scene where she goes into space and creates the storm, she's back in present day. In the costume here, they just called her X-Men costume in the comics. They didn't have a special name. She just wore later during the 90s for a little while. Then we get a scene with Wolverine, and he has his adamantium back. This is probably later in the season. We saw some other footage of him in his Savage Wolverine form without his adamantium soon after the events of season 1, probably like the first couple of episodes. And he literally says in this scene, "I'm back," and does his comic book pose with the thing of goading someone. Hugh Jackman has actually done this in live action a couple of different times. Marvel's even released a 1-hour loop of him doing this after Deadpool and Wolverine came out. Jubilee comes back in present day. I think this is happening in present day. She's wearing a black suit from the Wolverine and Jubilee comic book. I think this is when she was a vampire in the comics, but I don't think she's going to be a vampire on the show. I think it was mixing and matching costumes from different eras. Pretty much everybody wears at least like 2 or 3 different costumes during season 2, it seems like, based on this footage. They kind of did that during season 1 too, but there were a couple different costume changes. There's a losing of Sunspot in his X-Men costume. He's on the team in a bigger way in season 2. Angel is back, but he's still in his Archangel form because of the way his story left off at the end of X-Men.
Good awareness there, wasn't
He
it?
was on Gorge's chart of available mutants at the end of season 1, so they were looking for the team to fill their roster holes. You also remember that Apocalypse is like the big villain of season 2, and he really, really hates Apocalypse. We see the scene of Forge going back to ancient Egypt, finding the X-Men there, probably brings them back to present day sort of after this. I'm assuming this is in the first couple of episodes. Jean Grey and Cyclops are then in present day now. She makes those silent Wolverine claws with like Cyclops' in a white area to take down a big group of people. Very, very cool use of powers here. And they're wearing the Frank Quietly paint skins. Guessing to go Mega Red, who was back. We saw him during season 1 briefly. We see Adult Cable coming back. Then we get a conversation between Magneto and Professor X. They're still in ancient Egypt, and it says whatever forces await will face them together, and they have a montage of different teams and time periods. I'm assuming the conversation happens relatively early in like episode 1, episode 2. We get a scene of Magneto's other vendor, Polaris. Nick Campbell is supposed to be playing her, and rumors with Kid Omega, Penance, and a couple other younger mutants I can't quite probably protecting them during a fight. We see X Factor. It seems like they're a bigger team during season 2, like we're acting during season 2.
All one, well read.
The big change here, though, is that Valerie Cooper, of all people, is leading the team.
Into the last 30 minutes now.
Against Bastion during season 1 and said Magneto was right about everything. So it makes sense that she'd be on Team Mutant this time. But here's the thing. There were so many theories during season 1 that she was actually secretly Mystique in disguise all season and maybe was serving Apocalypse's greater goals. Secret missions going on.
Anticipation rising with this move.
We haven't seen Mystique during season 1 or season 2
and the promise of something happening is over.
She's actually Valerie Cooper.
This could be the moment for a counter.
Mystique this whole time. It just feels like a very Mystique kind of thing to you. Like, being in front of your face this whole time.
Another goal, and it's one that tightens their grip on this game.
Should have just jumped offside. Me offside trap, whatever. Good counter, man.
Not totally clear who Rogue and Nightcrawler are fighting here in the distant past. This still seems like ancient Egypt. I'm assuming this group of people they're fighting serve Kang because he's the one ruling in this era when they first showed up. Get a scene of all the X-Men in present day again. Later in the season, it seems like after they come back to present day in the Frank Quietly costumes, fighting someone together, or some of them are in Frank Quietly costumes, not everybody. Professor X says, I fear there's more to the story, a darkness we have yet to understand, and the darkness, as they apply for the rest of the footage, is Apocalypse, enacting his long-term plan to conquer the world over thousands of years, past, present, and future, grand long-term goal. In the X-Men, we're really seeing parts of it during different time periods, about like the middle, or maybe like later in the season, they finally pull the dots together, like, oh, it's Apocalypse this whole time, it's responsible for all this stuff. Post-apocalyptic vision, make all the
easily into the goalkeeper's grasp.
We can see Apocalypse in present day in his celestial armor, and this beam in the fortress is in the distant future because they revealed his form in the distant future, like how he's evolved in the distant future. Then in present day again, then in the past again, denoted by the different eyes. Then they have that joke in the post-credit scene. The trailer, of course, the trailer would have its own post-credit scene. It's from Marvel. It seems like Lady Deathstrike, Sabretooth, Wolverine, maybe somebody else here too, is finding some of the records of a whole bunch of mutants and other superpowered people in somebody's basement here. And we get that great Laserdisc joke. Even though during the actual 90s, my dad never owned an actual Laserdisc, but he was a big CD person, and they were big on DVDs when DVDs came around in the late 90s, but never Laserdisc for some reason. Maybe they just thought it was too expensive and too niche. But the other joke here is that all the information is on DVDs. That's why Morph says digital video discs. That's what the acronym stands for. But the idea is that DVDs started to become very common in the late
I gotta just shoot this shit, bro. Stop playing. Stop trying to be cute.
Superior technology could store more information on DVDs, so they became very cheap, very fast. These are all the names we can see on the DVDs: Ajax, Aurora, Phantom X, Wolverine, Silver Fox. Then the number 18 in Roman numerals is Marcus. That might be a reference to the Marvel character, or it could be an Iron Man designation, because Iron Man is canon to X-Men the 97. We saw him during season 1. There's Cyborg,
Damn it, dude.
Winter
Tough.
Soldier, who we see previously in the series, so he's not canon to this universe. Then a really big Easter egg here too. Weapon 6 is actually Luke Cage from the Weapons Plus program. So Luke Cage is now canon to X-Men 97. We've been seeing all of the footage of him during Daredevil Born Again season 2 in live action. He's going to be a bigger part of all the Defenders stuff they're doing in Daredevil Born Again season 3, which they're filming right now. Defenders Assemble. There's I'm assuming that might be an Ant-Man reference. Garrison Kane, Sabretooth, Mutant Zero is actually Typhoid Mary, and the other one after is Cross, so I can't quite read the name. But let me know if you think you can read it.
That's where it ends.
We also find out that Lady Deathstrike is a huge Laserdisc fan, a woman of culture, but also I think the reference here is that because she's from Japan originally, she's Yuriko, Laserdisc was way bigger in Japan, so it makes sense that she would prefer it over DVD. Outstanding one that actually owned a Laserdisc player or owns one in present day. There were a couple Marvel movies that were released on the Laserdisc format, like the old version of low-grade Captain America and the old-school Dolph Lundgren version of the Punisher movie. Everybody post all your reactions in the comments below, and if you spotted any Easter eggs or references in the new trailer footage that I didn't talk about during the video, just write it below in the comments. Hopefully Marvel will release an official HD shiny version of this in the next month or so as we get closer to the summer. Now we have Spider-Man Brand New Day coming out and Avengers Doomsday. Those are all the things that are like really focused on this year. Also, we have the Vision Quest series. There was a trailer that leaked out for that. I'm in the middle of working on a video for that, so I'll try to post it in the next couple of days too. Everybody click here for that video. I'll update the link as soon as I post it. And click here for all my first videos and my Bot Rising trailer video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
The nature of the performance more than anything, they just never got out of second gear. They were dominated all over the park. I tell you what, I wouldn't want to be in that dressing room after that.
Well, he's performed admirably, a really good performance. Managed to put his stamp on the game.
Yeah, he was one of the standouts for me. Sets the bar so high and demands more from his teammates on a regular basis. Thoroughly deserved the result.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. Now that we've all had a chance to watch the Spider-Man Brand New Day trailer 15 billion more times, there's way more Easter eggs, way more stuff going on in the background, way more secrets they're trying to hide and edit out of the trailer digitally to remove spoilers, potentially. So we will break it all down. We see what you're doing, Marvel and Sony, trying to hide stuff in the trailer from us. Probably one of the biggest questions I got on my trailer video was this character here in the bus that he passes when he's being drugged by the tank. And people were wondering, is this Rogue? Because of the way her hair has that white streak in it. And it looks a little bit like Rogue in the comics. I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is 100% probably not Rogue, and this is just some random person, but they're trying to mislead you and make you think that it might be Rogue. I definitely think that they're playing on your idea of X-Men during the actual trailer, because there is X-Men stuff that's going on with her character, mutant stuff, Jean Grey stuff, so why wouldn't they be doing other mutant-related stuff in the trailer too? But the actual character sitting on the bus is not meant to be Rogue herself. Right now, I think that Sadie Sink is playing a version of Jean Grey, and she is meant to be the only big X-Men character, mutant character, in the actual movie. There are many people with powers, and we'll talk about that, because Bruce Banner talks to Spider-Man about his DNA mutating, so people are like, they're going to make Spider-Man a mutant. That's not exactly what's happening there. It's changing, but it's not turning into an actual mutant.